Table Talk. My name is 𝗪𝘀𝗀𝗃 and I am your host. And thank you so much for saying yes. I really appreciate the opportunity for you to come on the show and be able to share your strength and your knowledge to make the world a better place. So tell me, who are you and why did you say yes?
So my name is Dr. Viola Pierce. I am the owner and CEO of VP Nursing and the Nurse Nurturer. I'm where we teach nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. And the reason why I said yes is because during the pandemic, what happened was we were put through a lot of, unsafe staffing ratios. I mean, just crazy. It was a thing that it was really the straw that broke the camel's back, right? And so with nurses, we have so much knowledge, and we just have to learn how to monetize that and be able to package that up and sell it so that we change the face of healthcare as we know it, right? Not just healthcare, but then to change the face of our families' lives as well. And so I figured out a way to go from being a bedside nurse to be a six-figure entrepreneur, and I just wanted to teach other nurses how to do the same thing.
Wow. So what was the mind shift? So today's conversation, this is a call to action. And the thought process is, how can we give nuggets to our listeners and our viewers to utilize strategies to shift your mind? Because in the pandemic, we went from going into an office where we had employees and a supervisor and very structured environment to being at home on our own. Oh yeah, let me wash the dishes. Well, then I'll do this later. And then you have to shift your mind to be somebody and something different. Tell me, how did that work for you?
So the way that it worked was that I always had a structure to my day, like from the very beginning with my children, because I had to go through the DNP program. So I had to have structure. And so I've always had.
So tell us what that program is. We don't know your acronym.
So DNP is Doctorate of Nursing Practice.
Okay.
And so it was a pretty strenuous program, and it was just hard to do that, right?
Okay.
And so because of that, I've always had structure. So I've always woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I think best in the morning, right? And then I had to just move. I just had to move that same structure to my business, because a lot of times what happens is we get out of working for someone else, and then we have this negotiable spirit with us. Well, yes. I'm not going to negotiate with myself. I'm going to go. If I'm going to negotiate with somebody else, it's going to be with somebody else, not with my own, right?
Absolutely.
And so we sometimes tend to let ourselves down, and I'm just not. That just wasn't what I was going to do. I was going to make sure that I was not letting myself down. And so I structured my day. I have a calendar that I structure my day. I'm very analytical, obviously, as a nurse, right?
Yes.
So it gives me the ability to structure it in such a way.
Yes.
So
what I love about that is, I'm not a nurse, but I function the same way. I worked on a national level changing child welfare policies and practices. And one of the best qualities that I gained from them was to use a planner, right? Because you think, oh, I can do this, I can remember that. It's nothing like having a planner. And then I tried to get with the millenniums and do it in a cell phone. That don't really work for me. The alarms work, but I need the book. I need to turn the page. I need to touch the book. I need to highlight it. That works best for me. And with that being said, I can strategically get a lot done, right? In those busy lives. And so I think that would definitely be a nugget. Would you agree? To shift in mindset, start to plan your day and stop running off and saying whatever happens, happens, because you waste a lot of time that way.
But I think that one of the biggest things that was a shift for me is the be, doing, and having. So Myron Golden talks about this a lot, okay? So it's becoming who you are so that you can do the thing that you need to do in order to have what you need to have. And so I'll just tell you a brief story about how I was in the emergency department. And I'm very analytical. I'm all about the numbers, right?
Yes,
so safety depends on the expediency of the program, right?
Yes.
When you come into the emergency department, if a patient is having a heart attack, you want to make sure that patient is getting the care that they need to get within a certain amount of time. Strokes the same way. So there were metrics that we measured in the emergency department. door to drug, door to admission, door to physician, all those things, door to bed, all those things, right? And so what
Yes.
I was doing was I was making sure that all the metrics were in place, right? But what I
Yes.
was not doing was I was not taking care of my staff in the process.
Whew.
And so because I was not taking care of my staff in the process, what happened was they changed the way that it was being done. They changed the way the hiring process. And because they changed the hiring process, they went from the management who thought I was great because I was managing the numbers to my peers. My peers didn't think I was so great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did was they demoted me twice.
Okay.
And when I got demoted twice, then I said, well, okay, Viola, you need to go back and you need to look at yourself. You need to understand what exactly is going on with you, right? You need to intake that. And so when I said that, and I went back and I looked at myself, I started looking up leadership. And so right now, I'm
Yes.
certified John Maxwell speaker, coach, and trainer. But that was because I started looking up leadership. I started reading leadership books, and I went into the conference to become a certified Maxwell trainer. And I became a different person as a result of that. I would never, if you'd have told me 10 years ago I would be an entrepreneur, I would have been like, you're tripping, right? But because of the fact that I became a different person,
Mm-hmm.
I could do different things. So now I'm doing a different thing, being an entrepreneur. So I can have the time that I can spend with my family like I want to. And I don't have to ask anybody whether I spend time with anybody, right? And so I had to do that in order to be where I'm at today. So that was part of the mind shift, for sure.
That was a major mind shift because what I heard you say was I was working really hard making things happen. However, as long as I was at the top level, but my personal peers wasn't understanding where my mind was. And in order to be a good leader, I have to be able to lead both levels, top and bottom. And there
Right.
is harmony. There's no balance. There's the harmony, ebb and flow, right? And have to be able to do that in order to be a good leader. So now that you shifted and you've been trained and you're because you already iron, your iron has been sharpened. You've been able to really see some things differently so you can go full-fledged to entrepreneurship. I love it. I
Yes,
love it. I love it. I love it. You know, it's a fear that comes with entrepreneurship, right? Because am I going to make it? Am I going to do this? Oh my god. Oh my god, right? When I walked off of my job, I told them, I said, I sprung my shoulder, tore my rotator cuff, and I left that day. And I told my boss, and she knew I was leaving, but because I didn't turn in an extra set of notes, she had to cover her own butt. But I felt disrespected because she said to me when I got back, well, Mr. Toya, I'm gonna have to write you up. I said, for what? She said, because we didn't have no proof where you was at the end of the day. I said, what day? The day that you went. I said, I had a doctor's appointment when I went home. She said, I know, but you didn't turn in your notes. And she wanted me to sign. I've been working for this company 12 years. I had never had a write up. I was not having it. I got called in the office for being too spiritual, but I had never had a write up. And so when she did that to cover her own butt, I realized I can't work for people. I need to be able to bring all of me to the table because I was hurt. I work on the weekends. I'm that one that I don't get paid, but I'm going to stay there because you still need me. I'm that one that when they call you in the middle of the night, I'm gonna get up out of my bed and I'm gonna go make sure everything is okay with my boss because that's who I am. And then you lie because you was covering your own butt, and then she got promoted to the director. I said, oh, that made sense. But I don't have to work for people that don't respect who I am and what I bring to the table. So I agree with you, and I'm so glad you had that aha moment as you tapped into your mind growth, right? Because once you grow your mind, it can never go back. It's already expanded. It can never go back. And so good for you.
I do want to
Go-
say something about what you said as well, because one of the things that really resonated with me with John Maxwell is he has this quote that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Yes.
The deal is that you knew that she didn't care about you, right? And that's the reason why you were like, I cannot, go along with this, right? Why write you up for something that she was responsible for? That's her responsibility. It should have been her responsibility to figure that out. And then come back and say something. I mean, but I just feel like people in leadership get into leadership roles for money, for status, and that's a positional leader, right?
That prestige, yes.
Like, that's the reason why they get into those leadership roles. And she got into that leadership role for that. Now you understand that. See, the problem was that you were is the levels of leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were a 5 and she was a 3, right? And once you expand, and I'm not saying that you're a 5, but it's from 0 to 10. So
I
if
get it.
she's a 5, right? You can no longer be a part of that because you understand that you will operate in a very different manner.
Very different. That humility, that honesty, that stuff is important to me. And when you say stuff about me that's not true, see, I'm not that kind of person because the way my mind is set up. I'm not that kind of person that like cracking jokes on her. Oh, she fat. Oh, she ugly. Oh, I've never been that kind of person. When you start doing all of that, my mind say you saying that jokingly, but you mean that. So are you the people that I want around me? Absolutely not. So for her to do that, and they know how, they either call me Mama Bear or Mama Toy at my job, Mama Toy. And because I'm everybody's mama, look, I got 9 kids and 19 grandkids, and I've always had that leadership inside of me. But by the grace of God, I'm learning how to sharpen it up. Because when I first started having staff, honey, the first girl I fired, I went home and cried. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. So, but definitely that mind shift. So tell me another strategy for growing, shifting the mind.
I think it's definitely a couple of things. So circle and representation.
Okay.
So, I tell people all the time that, I rounded the little corner at the hospital and they came on the radio and said that Oprah Winfrey was a billionaire. I was like, a billionaire would it be? Wait a minute, hold up. And so I went back and I looked in her past to see whether she had a different past, right? Because with me, my parents didn't graduate high school. I'm not only a first generation college graduate, I'm a first generation high school graduate. And I felt like because of that, then I was limited, right? I was born up the civil rights movement. I'm about to turn 50 this year, right? And so because of that, I felt like, okay, there's a white man, white woman, black man, black woman, and I'm at the bottom of that totem pole. I'm never going to make it as high as that, right? But when they said that she was, that representation meant everything to me. And so then I went back and I looked in her history and found out that her mom and dad met at an oak tree, and that there were some Christmases where she felt food insecure, and that she didn't know whether she was going to have any toys or not. I never felt like that. Never ever felt like that. My parents were married for 62 years. They provided a loving home. I never felt food insecure. And so why am I making these excuses? The problem with people is that they make excuses. And the deal is that we are just ordinary people making one more extraordinary decision every single solitary day.
Yes, yes. Woo!
So
I love it.
That I knew that I just needed to just move forward in that manner. And I think too is your passion. I mean, my passion has always been with nurses. I mean, I felt like I was running, and it almost makes me cry because I felt like I was running for my life. I felt like I was running for my patients' lives. And I don't want any nurse to ever feel like that they have to go in and take an unsafe patient staff ratio because that's how they feed their family. I don't want anybody to feel like that ever.
Right.
And so because of that, I just have this passion for nursing. And the definition of insanity is doing the same
thing, expecting
a different result.
Mm.
We have been doing this thing for the last 30 years, which is how long I have been a nurse. And it has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And I know that we have got to change the landscape of things. So that's one.
So I have a question. You speak a lot of recovery verbiage. Are you in recovery?
Huh.
No. Okay. Well, I am, because that process of nobody cares how much you know,
Until they know how much you care.
that one we use all the time, and then the insanity. So I was like, hey, she my kind of girl. She speak my language. So,
I'm
but I,
recovering from the hospital. That's what I'm recovering from.
well, I'm recovering from domestic violence, sexual assault. I'm a recovering alcoholic and a recovering addict. I am a recovering I was illiterate until I was 29. So, and now I'm a two-time author,
You
and I'm
better do it.
excited.
Woo!
So, yes, ma'am. So when you talk about that passion, that passion, that passion, that passion, I understand it. When it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault, baby, I live that every day. And I've learned how to separate me from it, because, of course, in the beginning, it was a challenge. Everything was about me, right? Like, oh, I gotta, oh my God, I have to. And if I don't, then no, put it in place, make it happen. And then now it's 11 years in the agency and 23 years in the trenches. So definitely God is good all the time, right? All the time.
Like what you've been through, that's for sure.
Well, praise the Lord. You know what? I have to say this. I've been out that abusive relationship for 23 years. And there was some time in my life where I felt like I couldn't make it. I just was not going to make it. At that time, I had 7 children. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do with these kids? And they coming home with homework that I can't even read, right? Couldn't even read it. And I'm sitting down with them and they reading it. And once you read it to me, it makes sense. I'm gonna help you do this and that. But I was like, they not gonna pass me up. And when you speak on the knowledge of being the only one in your family to make it to success in your life, understandable, right? Understandable. When I look at my parents, both of them had their own set of challenges, which a lot of times they do, but they did the best that they could with what they had. And I just utilize it as a launching pad to do something different. So having 9 kids was not easy. They're all grown. I have one baby, he's 17.
You are my empty nester. I love it.
Ooh, girl, you know what? My nest been quite empty with one kid, because he act like an old man. So he's sitting in his little corner. He like a little old man. But and the one next to my 17-year-old is 25. So everybody else is 37 to 25, and just the one that just popped from God said, "Here you go, baby." Uh, but that mind shift has really been amazing, because you talked about going to school and having structure and being able to teach your kids how to have a routine and having a planner and being willing to say, wait a minute, something ain't right. Let me dig deeper. And not only deeper but wider, because sometimes we go real deep but we don't go wide enough.
Right,
We just digging. No, you
right.
got to go wide enough so you can process what it is that you're finding, so you're able to assess and make shifts in your life. So I would love for you to give me the third thing that you would share with our guests that's very helpful.
I think for me, it's the circle. Your circle. I say this all the time that you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And a
Need
lot of
more
times
friends.
we want to be the smartest person in the room, and I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And a lot of times we don't want to be humble enough to ask questions. Well, because I'm Dr. Viola Pierce, quote unquote, then I'm not supposed to ask questions. If I knew the answer, if I was where I needed to be, then I wouldn't need to come into the circle. I mean, that's just what that is, right? And so if I had in me what I needed to be able to do it, I would have already done it. So
Right.
therefore, I need to be humble enough to be asked the questions, to sit back and be the student, and to understand that my circle is my life. And
Hmm.
so my circle, and you talk about and I love how you talked about the people who talk about people who are bad and all that. That's not what I'm doing. I don't talk about people. I'm not trying to talk about people. I'm trying to talk about ideas.
Hmm.
They talk about small minds talk about people, middle
That's
minds
right.
talk about
Hmm.
events, big
That's
minds talk
right.
about You know what I'm saying? So it's all about ideas. And so we have to be very in tune to talking about where we need to go as women, right? And understanding for us, because my particular genre, who I serve is nurses. And as
Mhm.
nurses, changing the landscape because it is literally a public safety issue.
Wow.
You come into the hospital, you need to have a nurse who is nurture. I started it off as the nurse nurturer. So you need to have a nurse that's nurtured. The nurse don't need to be worried about whether, outside that somebody's going to come and repossess their car. They're not going to be focused on what medication they give. We give medications that can kill people every day. Every day.
Wow.
We don't need to be focused on anything else other than what we are doing at that bedside, taking care of that patient, period. But we have so many other things that we're focused on that we can't do that. I did it for 30 years.
Mm.
It's like time is over. Luckily, I didn't harm anybody. Luckily, nobody, there's nothing that happened. But now things are happening where people are being harmed, and then the nurses are being criminally charged for it. So we had this physician over here that literally gave 14 doses, high doses of medications intentionally. He ordered them for the patient. The nurses lost their license and he was not charged. However,
Wow.
however, there was a nurse who accidentally gave a medication. She was charged and it's about to go to jail if nothing else happens. So I mean, it's the way that the system is set up, and I understand that. But nurses have a huge voice because we're the biggest profession in healthcare. So we have
Yes.
the ability to move the needle, but we have to just stand up for that. So that's
Mhm.
my passion. I will stand on it all day long because I don't want any of my family members. I don't want you. I don't want anybody to go into a hospital and get unsafe care, receive unsafe care because of the practices of the hospital. Period.
Uh, mm, yeah. It reminds me of my son who just died recently. Well, not it's 11 years, but it's recent enough for me. But um, the he had surgery, and the doctor laid him on his back and had his hands tied. And when the respiratory therapist came in there, she laid him flat on his back and she left his hands loose. And when I came in there, he was choking and he snatched a tube out of his mouth and he died. So um, that is at that point in time, I promise you, ma'am, I didn't want to fight. He'd been in the hospital for 17 months, but I saw it. I heard them when they put that BPAP on his mouth. When he snatched his tube out of his mouth, he was
Mhm.
spitting up blood, right? When I hit the corner and I screamed, somebody help him, he's spitting up blood. But because he was in an incubator thing, everybody putting on clothes, doing, what they have to do, protocol. But once they made it in there to him, they just put that big CPAP on his face. I heard it literally bust his lung open. I heard it because the lung, you have to fold it over in that you can't sew it because of the material that it is cells. But they had just went and cut it and fixed it. And then when they blew that big thing in there, I heard it. I said, what is that noise? It was coming from his stomach. I heard it. And he never woke up from that. I saw the lady who came because she knew me because I've been in there 17 months. And she said, how are you? I said, I'm fine. I wanted to attack her, I kid you not. But I was like, let me just pull it together. Maybe it was something else. Everything was fine. But when they put that big thing on him and blew that air in there, it blew that lung open and he never, and you can live with one lung. I know that. But he had issues going on. But the way that thing blew through there, my baby never woke up. He never woke up from that.
So sorry.
So I was just sharing this. I'm trying to stay focused. Um, but I was just sharing this with a lady a couple days ago. It's so strange that we're having this conversation again. It must mean that it's time for me to go back and at least talk to the respiratory therapist so they could do some more training, right? Because they can't pay me enough to bring my son back. But what you can do is train them wherever those kids are laid, the way the doctor left them. My son was 12 years old. He should not be able to tell you that he didn't want to, he wanted to lay flat, because she asked him, because I'm right in front of the door, and on her way out she said, see you later. She said, I asked him, did he want to sit back up? He said no. He wasn't talking, but he was nodding because he was under a little where he was functioning. But be that as it may, you're so right. And I am so glad you just brought me a step closer to you. I am so glad that you brought that to my attention in that way, because I never looked at it that way. I looked at it like it's negligent. I should have gouged her eyeball. I was so hurt. So hurt. Right? He fought cancer. You know, he had no cancer when he died. Um, the aspergillus fungus was cut out. I mean, everything was fine. And then that happened. I mean, I said God is all divine. It wasn't meant to be, but it was negligence. It really was. And she don't know about it because it took everything out of me not to grab her. I was just that upset after he died, and I come downstairs to eat, and you sitting in there eating your food. My baby is gone, ma'am. So yeah. But thank you for making sure and giving them a voice. um Hopefully they'll move to more training, taking care of the people so they'll know how to take care of our guests.
I think it's beyond training. I think it's the care of the staff. But I hate that obviously I hate that happened to your son. I hate that happened to your family. There are times when that happens and you literally you don't know where to go and what to do. And I just I applaud you. I applaud you because you did have that restraint. Because life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it.
Hmm.
I applaud you for you having that restraint. I applaud you for not doing anything in that moment
I
because
would
I
have
don't
been in jail.
right, and I don't believe that she went to work that day saying that she wanted to harm your
Mm-mm.
son.
She did not. She did not. But and that's, I don't think so, because me and this little lady had been talking. Every time she see me, hi, how you doing, ma'am? And she go on about her little business. But I think that if you go in a room and a doctor have a kid tied, his hands tied up, it's tied up for a reason, right?
Right.
And I could even see the fact that he didn't want to lay down. He didn't want to sit back up because when I came, he was flat. I could see that. But if his hand was tied, it was tied for a reason. It was
Right.
tied so he wouldn't take the tube out. And he snapped. Once he started choking, I seen him when I hit the corner. He was spitting up blood, and it scared the crap out of me. But so we're gonna probably have to edit that. Well, maybe not, because it goes to what you're really talking about. Um, you know, care.
That's
Making sure that our nurses are taken care of. And one of the things that I get to do with the nurses here at Two Lifestyles, some of our nurses are alcoholics and addicts, and I drug test them, and I get to pour in love to them when I'm with them. Like I had two yesterday, and they're so distraught about losing their license and all these things. But I'm like, you got to take care of this addiction first, because you cannot work with a nurse if your mindset is not on the right path, right? And my mother is an alcoholic and addict, and she was a nurse. And so ain't no way I want no, not my mother drunk working on me. Absolutely not. Just
right.
no. So it's a lot of other things. So I commend you on what you're doing to work, to be supportive. It's important. It's so
Well,
important.
you on, just bringing light and working with, those who are addicted because it's a passion of yours. You are working it out. So kudos to you for
Ah,
sure.
well, thank you. I need to be on your team. Somebody need to teach me how to make money. I know how to be a humble servant. I've been a counselor for a long time. But I have not learned how to monetize it in a way that's equitable. I have not, because the women that come in here, okay, I see the clock. The women that come in here, I service them, and then they come with these long drawn out stories, and I just want to hug them and service them, and then they go out the door and they new people, and I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to shift my mind another level. Stretch me, Lord. Stretch me. Because my thing is I need to be a humble servant. I need to be a humble servant, but I also have a family.
That's right.
So that's where I'm moving to. So you can help the old lady.
Well, you ain't an old lady. I think we about the same age. I think we're right there together.
No, ma'am, I'm older.
Okay, all right. Well, you can't be much older.
I'm 52. I'm just 52.
And I am close to 50. I turned 50 this
Okay.
year.
Congratulations. It was the best thing, honey. I love it. I love it. So, as we close, this was amazing. And thank you so much for your insight. And thank you so much for the opportunity to look at it a different way. Again, shifting my mind, right? Shifting my mind. Because if you're constantly worrying about, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to hear, I got to do this, she probably didn't even think or was reminded in her mind that his hand was tied. You know what I'm saying? Because that's been in me. Like, tie it. Why you didn't tie his hand up? I just keep saying that to myself over and over again to take away the guilt, the fact that I walked out of the room and left him in there. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big deal because when she came in there and they done one like 4 hours before that, and every time they move him, he go and I was like, I'm not watching this again. I'm gonna step out. You know, my mindset, if I would have stayed in there, I would have said, hey, don't forget to tie his hand back up. But I would never know because it didn't happen. So I learned to forgive myself and move on and forgive her and move on and now see it differently. So thank you for stretching my mindset to see something beyond my dreams, my vision. Because there was a part of my book of about he's my son. That's a book I'm gonna write about my son. He's my son. And she would have been in it in a different light. So thank you.
And I think that, you said something very important about forgiving yourself and forgiving,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
forgiveness is like eating the poison and expecting the other person to die. And it's never going to happen. So
Mhm.
it is super important. So I'm super glad. This is fun.
You know what? I agree. Okay, did you think it was what did you think it was gonna be? Tell me.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I knew that it was stretching of the mind, but it was just fun having a conversation with you and learning all
Yes.
these life experiences and just connecting, right?
Right.
Because, understanding the humbleness behind your platform and understanding everything that you're doing. So kudos to you. Kudos to
And
you.
and kudos to you too. We actually have kudos we give to our staff in the office. We make sure people get kudos when they do a good job. So I think that that's important. Um, and if you can say anything to our viewers or our listeners, what would you tell them on how to shift that mind? Because you definitely helped me shift mine.
I would say that when you're shifting your mind, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do,
Mm,
but it is necessary if you want to grow. You just have to look at things differently. If what you have been doing is not working, then you have to change. You have to shift from that place and get around people who give you a different perspective.
that's
Your circle is super important. You have no squares in your circle. Books are the blueprint of life, okay?
right.
And so understanding that the more you read, the more you earn, the more you learn, the more you earn. And just really being around people who are pouring into you is super important. Not the people that are the ride or dies, not the people who are going to put up with everything that you have done and then let you be, right? You have to be
Mhm.
around people who are going to stretch you, who are going to make you feel uncomfortable, who are going to make you grow from the place in which you are at.
Whew. And I want to say this: to whom much is given, much is required. That's a Bible verse.
That's right.
And I've been given an opportunity to stretch my mind beyond my wildest dreams. And I remember when you talk about the more you learn, the more you earn. I remember not being able to read. Like I'm gonna do some Jerry curls, and that's what I did. I did Jerry curls and pedicures. I sold contact lenses. I was like, you know what? I need to make some money. And then after graduating the domestic violence program, excuse me, I decided that I wanted to go back and support them, but I have to be educated enough to support them. And so I did. And so Now my mind growth is working from a different platform because I could do trench work real well, but now it's time to move to the
Expand.
next level, expand my mind. Absolutely. This right here is expansion, honey. And this came from my tech guy. Now, I had a lot of equipment where I did this, but it wasn't via Zoom like this set up this way. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And thank you so much for being a part of our call to action because with a platform like this, we're able to reach many. Their cell phones in their cars, doing laundries at school, in their ears. I mean, we can help them change the way they look at themselves as well as stretch their mind. So my name is 𝗪𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗃 Hampton. I'm your host, and thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.